Hi there, this is your instructor Firdaus Shahri. Today we are going to discuss about the global businesses. So let's get started. The contents of today's lecture are the global businesses, trade rules and agreements. We will discuss about corporate level strategies, forms of global businesses, how to go global, and becoming aware of the cultural differences. So what is a global business? The buying and selling of goods and services by people from different countries. So that is a global business. Multinational corporations, they are also called as M&Es or MNCs, uh, two or more than two countries. So they operate in two or more than two countries. Nestle, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, mobile phones, Samsung, Nokia, and you name it. So there are many M&Es that operate in more than two countries. Now there are different ways of going global. For example, direct foreign investment. So it is a method of investment in which a company builds a new businesses or buys an existing businesses in a foreign country. Now, what are the trade barriers? Trade barriers are the trade restrictions, bans, tax, and so on. So the government impose regulations, increase the cost, and restrict the number of goods. And there are different reasons why the organizations and why the governments they put a trade barriers. Now, there are five types of non-trade barriers. But before we explain the different types, so let me discuss what does protectionism means. So protectionism is what? It is a trade barrier to shield the domestic companies and their workers from the foreign competition. Now the best example is the current US government, the Biden, tries to impose 100% tax on the Japanese cars. So to protect the local US industry of automobiles. Now the tariff is the direct tax on imported goods firms. And the non-tariff barriers are the non-tax methods to increase the cost of reducing the volume of imported goods. And there are five types of non-tariff barriers. So number one is quotas, voluntary export restraints, government import standards, government subsidies, and customer valuation. So let me discuss you one by one. So what are the quotas? Quotas are the limits on the number of volume of imported product. For example, the government puts the quota that we can only import 500 automobiles or cars from Japan. So 500 is a quota. Now, while voluntary export restraints is a limit on the number or volume of product exported to a particular country. Say, we may put the export restraint that we are going to export, say, 1,000 tons of rice to other countries. So we put a restraint on the volume and the tons or kilograms and so on. Similarly, the governments may have the import standards. So established to protect the health and the safety of citizens, but often used to restrict import. So we are going to import some products. So the government put some limitations on the imported products. What are the subsidies? Subsidies are the government loans, the grants, and the tax defendants given to the domestic companies to protect them for the foreign competition. So we can say the subsidies are the financial help that is being given by the local governments to their organizations. Custom classifications assigned to imported products by the government officials that affects the size and the imposition of the imported quotas. Now, what are the trade agreements? Now, the trade agreements, there are different types. For example, GATT. GATT stands for General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. So what is GATT? It reduces and eliminates tariffs, limited government subsidies, and establish protections for intellectual property. Now we all know what does intellectual property mean. These are the trade rights, these are the copyrights, the brand names, and so on. World Trade Organization, so-called WTO, that is the only international organization that deals with global rules of trade between the nations. Its main function is to ensure that the trade flows as smoothly and freely as possible. So there are the trade between different organizations, different countries, 4 countries, 5 countries. So there may be occasions that there may be some kind of disputes in these organizations or in these countries. WTO is a platform, is an organization that settles a dispute between these nations. Regional trading zones are areas in which the tariffs and the non-tariff barriers on trade between countries are reduced or eliminated. And the best example is NAFTA. Now, what is a NAFTA? It is an agreement between the 3 countries, the USA, Canada, and Mexico. And it says what? Free trade agreement means that there are no tariffs between the 3 countries. There is free movement of goods and free movement of services between the 3 nations. There are forms of global businesses, for example, exporting. So what is exporting? Selling domestically produced products to customers in foreign countries. Agriculture country, Asian countries, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, because they are considered to be the best agriculture countries. So they export rice, they export vegetables, they export fruits, and so on. So they are considered to be the best exporter of the agriculture products. Now, cooperative contracts are the agreements in which the foreign businesses owns a company's a fee for the right to conduct their business in his or her country. Now, there are 2 types of corporate contracts: licensing and franchise. So when I say what is a licensing, it is an agreement in which the domestic company, the licensor, receive royalty payments for allowing their other companies. The licensee produces the licensed product. For example, KFC, McDonald's, they give license to other local brands, so they are called the licensee. They sell the company's products, they use their brand name, and they pay the loyalty to the KFC or McDonald's. Franchise is a collection of network firms in which the manufacturers or the marketers produce the franchisors, the licensees, the entire businesses, and so on. Now, there are different forms of global businesses. For example, a strategic alliance. So what are the strategic alliance? It is an agreement in which the companies combine key resources. For example, they can combine the cost, the risk, the technology, and people. Joint venture is the best example. It is the most common strategic alliance where the 2 existing companies collaborate to form a third independent company. The best example is the Fuji Xerox, that is a joint venture company. Fuji is the Japanese company, and Fuji from Japanese, and the Xerox is US-based company. So they had a joint venture, and they make the best photocopier machine and so on. General Electric and Mitsubishi, they have the electric, they have formed the PowerX. They make the hybrid automobiles, hybrid cars, and they run on both the gasoline and they also run on electric power. Now, organizations, when they try to operate in other organizations, particularly when they try to operate in other countries, they must be aware of the cultural differences. So what are the cultural differences? National culture. What is a national culture? It is a set of shared values and beliefs that affects the perceptions, the decisions, and the behaviors of the people from a particular country. And there are 5 culture dimensions. So number 1 is power distance. So what is the power distance? The extent to which people in one country accept that power must be distributed unequally in society and organizations. In other words, countries that believe on the power distance, they believe that there must be hierarchy, there must be difference between the high level manager, the low level manager, the middle level manager. So there must be a difference in the power. And then we have individualism. It is a degree to which the societies believe that individuals should be self-sufficient. Employees put loyalty to themselves first and then loyalty to the organizations. So organizations or the countries that believe in individualism, here the employees focus first on their own beliefs and then they look into the organization goals. or we can say they give more focus to their individual goals. And then we have number three, that is called masculinity and femininity. They are the two differences between the assertiveness and nurturing cultures. The masculinity culture, the people are very assertive, and they are very they believe in competition, they believe in material success, they believe in achievements. Whereas the femininity culture, they emphasize on relationships, they emphasize on modesty, caring for the weak, and so on. Now, when again, I already explained that when we work in other organizations, particularly when we work overseas, we must be aware of the culture differences. So the another difference is called uncertain avoidance. It is a degree to which people in a country are uncomfortable with unstructured and unpredicted situations. Here in these countries, people tend to be aggressive, emotional, and seek security. Now, the short-term and long-term orientation, whether the culture are oriented to present or whether they seek immediate gratification or to the future and defer gratification. Countries with short-term gratification are consumer-driven, whereas countries with a long-term gratification are saving-driven. Now, we need to be prepared for an international assignment. So expatriate, who are expatriate? Someone who lives and works outside his own or native country. There are many Asians that live in Saudi Arabia and Middle East because they can have good jobs there, so they can have they can make more money, so they are considered as expatriates. Now, when we move and settle in other countries, in other societies, particularly with our families, with our spouse, they may have many challenges. Now, for example, they may have difficulty in getting settled there. They may have language barriers. They may have different barriers. For example, language barriers are the languages and cross-cultural barriers that reduce uncertainties. Now, the best example is the Arab organization, the Middle East, the Khalij so-called. They prefer to speak Arabic, even for the expatriate. I hope you enjoy my lecture. Thank you for listening.